Let's keep knocking these headings out. All right, let's go back to the design. We have the written by our team done. So now we need these two, the top 10 things you need to know and questions to ask before you leap. I'm going to make sure I have the rectangular marquee tool selected so we can copy this and save it. And we'll call this snippet heading. I'll jump back to our editor and we'll change the image source here to snippet. So now if you don't have Photoshop, you can copy this image from the 13th step, snippetheading.png.step. Just rename it to the PNG file and put it in the same directory as all of your other files. And now we need to figure out what HTML this heading should use. Our previous heading is a pretty good example. If we look at our design, we have our heading 2 here, just like we did up here, and these seem like the next in the hierarchy. So heading 3s. I'll go back to our code. And at this point, we know that they're going to be inside of a component, and we should have a class for that component, and we should also class the heading inside. So I'm just going to copy this HTML as a starter, and let's figure out what to call this component. So I'm going to jump back over to the design. So this is an article snippet, and while I can envision there being different structures of snippets throughout this site, we only have one right now. So why don't we just call it snippet, and then if that becomes ambiguous later because there's other formats of snippets, we can rename it then. Again, sometimes it's better to work with what you know instead of trying to make assumptions about where this website is going to go in the future. So let's go back to our code, and we'll call this snippet. And for the H3 class, we'll call it snippet title. And then let's get the text from our mockup. I'm just going to take the text tool and copy it so I don't have to type it all out, and I'll save this. And now I'll jump back to our browser so we can see these in comparison with one another. So we have the styles.css file open in the sources tab, just like we did before. And so let's edit the CSS file. Now, if you haven't lined up Chrome with these files, that's okay. You can just do this in a text editor. We're just working in the styles.css file. So in order to style this, let's create a selector. Again, this is called snippet title. And I'm just going to add some bogus styling to make sure we're selecting the right thing. So I'll do color red. There we go. So what do we need to change? So let's start with the color. I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and I'm going to select the color by highlighting the text here and selecting the color from the color box and copying it right here. And then back in the browser where we're doing our editing, I'll set the color to that value. Okay. Now, like the other text, this text doesn't have a serif. So we're going to use a sans serif font. I'll copy this style from our previous style and paste it in. Let's play with the font size a little bit. Font size. And again, remember we're trying to match the vertical height rather than the width. The width is something that we'll end up adjusting with letter spacing most of the time. So let's try 20 pixels. Okay, I'm just going to bump up until I get something close. 24, 26. So 24 to me seems like the closest. This is also really thick, so I'm going to use the font weight 100 like we did in our previous heading. And at this point, it looks pretty dang close. It's a little bit wider, but not by much. Now, this has a different background, but if we look at the design, the reason for that is because it's inside of this stacked hero section here, rather than that background being part of the component itself. All right, so that looks good. So let's save our CSS. And let's add the second title here, questions to ask before you leap. I'll go back to our editor. I'm going to copy this section here, paste it in, and I'll edit the text. We'll save it. And now we've successfully done all of the headings on the page. Let's move on to the next typographical elements.